Our thoughts are with those affected by the derailment in Stonehaven and thankful to the efforts of the emergency services. With pupils returning to school, this means a whole new phase of interaction between large groups of people. I want to ask the First Minister about plans to protect those working and studying in those schools. The Scottish Government has Test and Protect, but when I look at Aberdeen last week, the city went from isolated incidents to a full regional lockdown in the matter of hours. Can the First Minister tell me why Test and Protect was unable to contain the virus? Schools should be amongst the last to close in the event of an outbreak, but is Test and Protect ready to protect our schools?
First Minister.
Can I come on maybe specifically to schools in a second, but Test and Protect, and this is part of the, I suppose, the learning journey that all of us are on here. Test and Protect on its own is not going to stop coronavirus outbreaks. We all have the principal responsibility to do that. We're the first line of defence. If it gets through us, Test and Protect is the second line of defence, and it's really important we all understand that and communicate that to our constituents. Test and Protect has worked very effectively in Aberdeen, and without Test and Protect, we would not be dealing with, albeit a large and complex outbreak, but one that I hope is on its way to being contained. We would already by now be dealing with widespread community transmission. The numbers of contacts that have been traced, the speed at which they have been contacted and traced is a real credit to the work of Test and Protect. Now, I'm not complacent about that because, you know, as First Minister, one of the questions in my mind is if we have several outbreaks at the same time, are the resources we've got sufficient to deal with that? And we are looking all the time at how we strengthen and improve the resilience of these arrangements. But I really do want to stress how well Test and Protect has worked and is working in Aberdeen, and give due credit to everybody involved in that. Part of the function of Test and Protect, of course, is to give us intelligence and information about where an outbreak has started and what the chains of transmission are. That is why so early on in this outbreak we were able to say that it had in all likelihood originated in the nighttime economy, and that is why we took the decision, the difficult decision, to close down hospitality. So I think we should, albeit it might seem a bit counterintuitive, I think all of us should take some confidence and assurance from how Test and Protect has worked, albeit we should not be complacent about the challenges that will lie ahead for that. In schools, Test and Protect will be available to any member of staff or young person who is symptomatic. There will also, on top of Test and Protect in schools, be surveillance through data gathering, and then in the autumn supplemented by surveillance testing in schools. And in addition to that, and the Deputy First Minister is going to cover this in a statement to Parliament this afternoon, so I won't go into all of the detail, but he will announce some further expansion of the availability of testing in schools to give greater assurance to teachers and other staff working in our schools. Final point, because I know Willie Rennie and the President are probably getting frustrated at the length of this answer. The final point is this, and it's a difficult one for me to communicate. We, in all likelihood, will see outbreaks of coronavirus in schools, and in secondary schools perhaps in particular. It is how we contain those and make sure that those are properly dealt with that is the really important thing. And I want to give the Chamber assurance that that is absolutely an issue of priority focus for the Government.
Willie Rennie.
I'm equally sure that's why the First Minister understands that people are very nervous about what's going to happen following the opening of the schools. But they're equally nervous about universities too. 2 weeks ago, I asked the First Minister about whether she would agree to test all international students on arrival in the country. It was a policy supported by one of her science advisors, Devi Schridder. We want these students to come, but we want them to be safe too. The First Minister said she was considering this. I warned her that time was running out. We are 2 weeks closer to students returning. So can the First Minister tell me what has been decided? Will all international students be tested?
First Minister.
I can't give Willie Rennie the conclusion of those discussions because these are issues still under consideration. I absolutely, and I do have a very acute understanding of how quickly the virus can spread, and therefore how urgent all of these decisions are. But I also understand that it's important to get them right so that they are sustainable and so that we can encourage and obtain real buy-in on the part of those we are expecting to comply with all these things. So that's why we are carefully considering, obviously with the university and college sector, and we'll set out more detail on that shortly. But as Willie Rennie, I think, knows, we listen very carefully to the advice of our advisory group, and Davy Schridder, who he quoted 2 weeks ago and again today, is a member of that advisory group, and we are paying very close attention to the recommendations that come from there.